We finally get a Premier League win. Can we enjoy it? No. There's bad news coming in. It's to do with Jurien Timber. He's undergone surgery on his ankle. I suppose the only little 1% of this that I suppose is more stomachable is that it's not to do with his knee. Obviously, he had the ACL surgery 2 years ago. Nearly closing on 2 years ago, which essentially kept him out for the whole of the 23-24 campaign. He's been a machine. Let me get some slightly better lighting. There we go. He's been an absolute machine this season. Jurien Timber played at such a high level. One of our players of the season and got himself out there time and time again. You can see he's been taken off in games. You can see he's been managing fitness. You can see he's gone down a lot because he's had pain problems, yet always made himself available for the game after game after game after. Ben White having surgery and not seemingly getting back to his best too quickly. Tomiyasu being out all season. The other injuries we've had across the squad has meant that Jurien Timber's had to play a lot of football, but this might be the 7th surgery now. So Sam Dean, so here's the news. So Sam Dean has said that he's undergone surgery on his ankle and that it's a case of wait and see. There's no time frame at the moment on his return. Hopefully it's nothing serious. Hopefully it's somewhat precautionary. Not all surgeries are hugely invasive. Not all mean that you're out for 3-4 months. But I suppose if there's one thing, like I said, it's not the ACL and the knee. But I think the other good thing is that at least this is a case of, it's now ahead of the summer and he's got time to recover ahead of the new season. But it's the 7th surgery? Havertz, Saka, Tomiyasu, White, Gabriel. I think I've just named 5 there have all had surgery this season. And there's probably more. Now Jurien Timber certainly one of those at 6. There's probably another 1 or 2 in there. And when this happens, it's going to destabilise because it's not just about the 11 you can get out there. It's about the minutes you're using them for and the lack of rest they're going to get because the squad size and bench isn't there to cover. Again, how much this is self-inflicted, I think I think bad luck's a part of it. I think our general game, the physicality with which we bring to every game, the intensity, the fact that we don't really have games killed off. I can't really remember too many games where we've been sort of 3-0 up by the 60th minute or even 3-0 up by half time would be nice. So, players can take their foot off the gas. Every game is played at such an intensity. There's always, feels like every minute has so much riding on it. Even in the Premier League games this season where we started to fall away and focus on the Champions League, yes, we might have rotated, but those games weren't, signed, sealed, delivered. And we had, obviously, leads that we threw away and we're trying to claw back and a top 4 race that we should have been more comfortable in but weren't. And all this stuff makes you think that, how much rest do these Arsenal players really get even in-game? How often can they stroll through a football match? It's all part of quality, game management, intensity, keeping the ball, all these different things. And it's something that Arsenal and Arteta need to address in the summer. Luck is a part of it and squad building and actually having some decent depth is a part of it too. On Jurien Timber, should he have played when he had all these problems? Look, I have been on podcasts, I've been in shows where we've talked about, the olden days where players used to just run through brick walls. They would do anything to get themselves on the pitch and play. And that the game's gone too soft. And now these days, everyone's kind of too worried about looking after themselves. And, for that reason alone, I'll never, ever be critical of Jurien Timber for wanting to play, nor will I ever be critical of the club for getting him out there. But I do wonder whether we've mismanaged Ben White in terms of the amount of minutes he's played, Jurien Timber, the amount of minutes he's played. And, this is why when you go back to January and people say, well, there's nothing we could do. We can do anything to improve Arsenal. And I'm thinking, well, maybe not in the striker department, you couldn't find that guy. But what about that winger so that Mourinho didn't have to play up front and Trossard and Martinelli could play more, more in that role. And therefore Mourinho could play more in midfield and give Rice more of a rest who's needed. That kind of, time in and out of the team because he's played so many minutes. What about at right back where we've had to at times put Thomas Partey out there because of the fitness concerns for Timber, for White, for Tomiyasu? Yeah, 3 right backs in a squad's normally enough. We're well stocked in that area and I feel for us. But there wasn't a loan deal. There was nothing we could do in January, even a 10, 15 million pound signing that could have come in. Even a Cedric type deal like we did a few years ago. And I know some people go, well, we've grown beyond that. But I'm talking a player that could have come in and simply just helped out in that area because we knew how short we were. Now, look, this is all ifs, buts and maybes, and it's just questions. And in reality, with Timber fit and Ben White coming back from surgery, you can understand why they didn't. But the point I'm making is when we're all sat there and we're going, there's nothing we could do in January. We couldn't do anything in January. I'm thinking, you could do nothing to improve the squad, to help the players we've got out there. Absolutely nothing. I've used the right back position as an example, but there's, you could say that for most, if not every position. And that's where I get a little bit frustrated, still looking back on the window and the lack of anything we did to really give ourselves the best chance for this season. Having said all that, fair play to Timber for getting himself out there. The club have made a swift decision, it seems. Or maybe a really late one, because if this has been going on for a while and we've made it worse, and that's not good. But anyway, they've done something to get him the treatment he needs, and hopefully he'll be back in time for, if not pre-season, at least the start of the season. So more details will emerge. Now, as you'll see from the title, we've got to talk about Leandro Trossard too, because it was weird. I wondered whether it was going to be a goodbye moment for him, the last game in the Emirates yesterday, and there was nothing in his kind of body language that suggested to me it was. But I think I saw some posts from, obviously, a lot of the footballers, whether it be Ødegaard, Saka, Havertz, and Leandro Trossard as well. I think a lot of their partners watched the game together. And there were some posts on stories that then did the rounds where they were basically, look, I'm paraphrasing, and you're all invited to go on Twitter and have a look for yourselves. But I'm pretty sure there were some posts, some stories that, whether it be from Bukayo Saka's partner or whoever, who were kind of almost sending like a best wishes or like a it's been a pleasure type message to Leandro Trossard's partner watching the game. And I don't know what that says. Maybe nothing, but maybe something. Can't remember who it was, but a club in Saudi Arabia did come for Leandro Trossard when the transfer window shut for us last summer. So I think we were into September of 2024. And we turned that down, but I think it was good money. I think it was in the region of £30 million. And when you look at that and you think if that offer came again, you'd probably take it. By the way, I like Trossard. Good player. Really, I like him. And I think he's got a part to play in the squad. And I don't think he should be focusing so much on age, because I think he's giving us good levels. And he's probably played more football this season than he has in sort of the previous, 2-3 campaigns he's been here. But if that money comes in, I feel you kind of got to do it. And when Arsenal and the reporters are talking about a big potential sale, I wonder whether they're talking the Martinellis, the Kiviors and the Trossards, as opposed to the Salibas, the Gabriels, the Ødegaards, if that makes sense. I hope that's what they're talking about. I hope they're talking more the players that, yes, maybe even a year ago we'd have said, nope, don't sell them, they're too important. I wonder if we now kind of look at some of those players and go, do you know what? Kivior, for example, Trossard, stepped in. They weren't expected to be starting 11 players, but when called upon, have largely delivered. Kivior especially has been superb covering for Gabriel. But you know what? Sometimes you've got to strike while the iron's hot. Sometimes you have to leave it on a high. Because I've seen us keep players because they've had a good end to a season, and then a year on we're going, yeah, we got conned by a patch, and really the level's there. Now, I don't think that's Kivior. I think he was a very good player, and I think the reason he's coming through and showing his quality now is simply because he's been given the opportunity in his best position at left centre-back. But like with him, like with Trossard, like with others, if the right money comes in, I think you do the deal. But let's see what happens. What do you all think? Do you think Leandro Trossard will stay? Or did those kind of posts on social media, which obviously I can't put up here, but did those posts on social media suggest something? Let me know. I'd love to know what you all think, because Trossard could be on his way. And quite frankly, if we're looking for a left winger and a striker, it wouldn't remotely surprise me. Hey, we were linked to Brian and Bema. I covered that on the Goonerverse in my match report, obviously, because a lot of the news came out around the time that Arsenal played Newcastle. So if you want my thoughts on that, it's there. But the number 19 would be free. That's the number, and Bema is currently wearing at Brentford. I like the idea of that signing. Anyway, everyone, big thanks. Absolute pleasure to chat to you here on the Goonerverse too, with some sort of instant reaction news. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, so you can be caught up to date with just Arsenal news and my thoughts on it. And of course, subscribe to the Goonerverse for some good content. I think we need to talk about Mbemo in good detail this week, so look out for that. All right, catch you in a bit.